Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, and 4 o'clock, and this is the regular business meeting of the Jefferson Public Utility District Board of Commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. I'm president of the board and calling this meeting to order. Jefferson PUD will be offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. And if you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise a hand to request to speak. So let's do a roll call of commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. I'm commissioner for District 1 and president of the board.
Kenneth Collins, Commissioner, District 2.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
Okay. We're all present and we have an agenda. Staff or commissioners, do we have any changes to the agenda? None from staff?
Motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the agenda as proposed. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. The agenda is approved. Our next item is public comment. The public comment period allows members of the public to comment, limited to 3 minutes each, on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the president and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commission meeting. After an initial warning by the president, individuals who intentionally violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. Do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment or online or in the room? Leo.
Yeah, so I got a few things here.
Okay.
So, all right. So the first thing is I haven't gotten answers to a couple of questions that I had submitted emails. One was the 2024 PILT that I sent you a copy of the letter from the Department of Revenue that they estimate that for 2024 you owe about $50,000. They calculate about $50,000 in PILT for your broadband retail services. You paid your 2023, but I don't think you guys paid your 2024. That was due at the end of April. And then I asked for a broadband or a rate study, and I haven't gotten any response on that. Your wholesale broadband. So the last commissioners meeting, there was some stuff that you guys talked about like why aren't you receiving RFPs? And I think the short of that is that your service offerings and rates are really unstable. So people don't trust what's going to happen, especially when they see your rate go from $150 to $2,000 a month. Right? Everybody went, that no, we're not even going there. Curtis's example of 15-year-old laptop, I don't think was really appropriate or was really accurate, because if that laptop, even 15 years old, its only task was to do what it did 15 years ago, and it was sufficient at doing that, just like the equipment is that NOAA is using, does the same thing that's always done, it's not been asked to do anything more, is sufficient to do its job. So even brand new equipment, you get brand new equipment, you know, bad right out of the box. Or 3 days later it dies, or 15 years later it dies. It happens. So there's no reason to replace stuff that's still performing the task that it's meant to do. The last two interactions with staff have been less than desirable. We met to discuss how we're going to handle the changes in the transport rates, especially to some of my customers. Will's suggestion was to then just move them and buy internet from us, and buy internet from the PUD to those locations. And then once the realization came that I would actually be paying less than I'm already paying now for the transport, then all of a sudden he later on came back with, oh, well, you buy the internet from us and then you have to pay us to get it to the customer. It's like, nobody else does that. I mean, if you had to pay us down.
And you're almost at your 3 minutes, so you could wrap up.
And then So, and then Friday a request, and then they said it was my responsibility to get my internet to the PUD's network. So even if I got rid of those for the pawn stuff, I'd still have to pay $2,000 a month just to be able to provide internet to the open access customers on the network. Or it's my responsibility, I could get it there some other way. Today, when I tried to see what is available for the connection there, what type of interface, what kind of speed, so I could handle that. I got a lot of conflict back from him, and eventually he said that, some way or another, I'm going to have to pay to get my internet onto the network to the PUD. Then we should set up a meeting online. I said, no, I don't want an online meeting. I like in-person meetings. And I was told at that point that I am not allowed to come down to the building on Otto Street,
Okay.
which is a public place.
Okay, thank you for you got it?
Got one little last thing,
Please hurry.
which was I submitted a service request from a customer and scheduled an appointment. The PUD contacted that customer and upsold them service from the PUD after I had placed the order and scheduled the appointment for the install. That's a big no-no in the sales industry. You get the order, I put in an order, they schedule the appointment, you fulfill the order as it's taken. Just last week, an Astound employee did the same exact thing, and he no longer works there.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to be done. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
That's a lot. Okay, did we have any other public comments before I give staff an opportunity if they want to respond to anything you brought up? Not seeing any hands, not have anybody in the room. Did staff want to respond to any of the issues that Leo brought up, or do you want to cover it during the manager and staff report, Kevin?
Yeah, a lot of this, I am working through Joel on, and so we won't be commenting on it this meeting, but I am working with Joel on a lot of these issues.
Okay.
Joel Paisner, our legal counsel.
Right, and Joel's not available this meeting, correct?
Correct. He is on vacation.
He's traveling. Okay. I guess I have a question. I did see the emails from Leo, and I realize we're busy with a lot of broadband work right now. I'm just going to ask the question. What are Leo's options for meeting with staff to get technical questions answered if he's trying to figure out what service to go to if he drops the transport service?
So I will visit with staff in the morning and come up with a plan and get back to the commissioners first, and then we'll reach out to Leo.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so it seemed to me, I think legal counsel said that as far as the rates went, that they were still working on that, and it would be late June or early July before that report on the rates would be, that's the best
Is that
information.
the rate study part of the
Yeah, the
question?
rate part of the question that came up. That was,
Okay.
I think that was kind of the timeline we're on. So just
Okay.
between now and then, legal counsel's the only one that's probably, or Kevin, the only two are going to be able to answer that question. The board is not going to have any more information than
Yeah,
the public will.
we
So.
haven't had any discussions on that.
And then one other quick question, and this is for Kevin, on the particulars of the business that Mr. Boyd is doing with the utility. Are these policy issues, or is this work that would happen with any other ISP that is just taking longer to do? You know, why is it coming before the board? Is there a policy issue that needs to be dealt with here?
I don't understand your question.
Well, as far as access to staff and what's being told can be done or not be done and that sort of thing, is there some policy change that needs to be made, or is this just normal work that happens between any ISP and staff?
So it is not a policy. It is a process, and I'll have to look into it, is the best I can tell you tonight, Dan.
Okay. Just curious
Yeah, yeah.
as to, because again, Leo, with all due respect, I know you want us to hear what's going on, but I don't know if it's in a timely fashion that we should hear at every meeting. That's my only reason for the question is, and I don't know what is timely and what is untimely. That's why I asked the question of staff, or, is there a policy issue that's hanging them up, or is this on staff? And that's Kevin's going to talk to his
Sounds
staff.
like it's a kind of
Yeah,
a
so-
process.
Yeah, so I just want you to know we hear you, but as
Hmm.
far as what we know and what we can do at this point, we're limited because that is the general manager and the staff's duties and jobs to do those things. So,
Okay. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Leo. Moving on, manager and staff reports.
So I'm going to start the staff report off, and this is kind of an odd one. Everything's kind of odd at our PUD. We're a little bit different. And I've had a customer come to me and wants me to bring it to the board, and I told him I'd bring it to the board in this format. The KGNI is putting together a petition so that they could use the parking lot at the Chimicum substation. During COVID, we had the parking lot open, and we had a Wi-Fi device in there. We still have the Wi-Fi device. Um, for the last little bit, we've had the gates closed, seals off the parking, and there's multitude of reasons for that. Um, at times, that used to get so full of cars we could not get in there if we needed to in an emergency. There's reasons not to have cars parked behind the gates. These gates were actually installed by PSE, and when they originally had it, those gates were always closed. But because of COVID and a place to park for people to use our Wi-Fi, we opened them. We have closed them now. We are. I'm comfortable with staff's decision that those gates should be remain closed, but it is something that's going to come to the board in the form of a petition, I believe, and it's if you're out and about, if you look at the Chimicum substation, there's gates about car length and a half off the road that we are closing now. So I don't know if the board's heard anything on this issue or not. I can answer some questions, but it is staff's recommendation. We keep those gates closed.
Well, as an occasional patron of the KGNI, nonetheless, I understand that parking is a real issue. But as a matter of precedent, I don't think we should make the area around that substation open to the public. There are a host of, I think, fairly obvious reasons why it would not be a good thing to do.
I guess the question that comes to my mind is, so it sounds like they don't have enough parking. Have they approached any other property owners about obtaining additional rights to park? And yes, they might have to pay somebody a little something for it. But yeah, I agree with Ken.
yeah, consensus. I agree. I think that we don't want to set the precedent for that, and it's critical infrastructure. Accidents happen. We get that, but the closer we let people get to that critical infrastructure, the higher the risk. And even if we were to consider it, I would want to hear from legal counsel about, are they bonded and have liability insurance if someone did damage something, right? Because we're allowing them to use that area. We might require them, if we even considered it, which it doesn't sound like we were willing to do, that they would even be covered for some damage that one of their patrons would do on our property. So I would be a little concerned about that.
And to be real clear, the issue isn't with KGNI, it's with the customers looking to park going into the KGNI.
Mm-hmm. And the Kaganai is the commercial benefactor of those customers. So I mean, when you propose a business, that's why cities and counties have parking regulations for businesses. So, I hear what you're saying. It's not a Kaganai driven initiative. It's like the customers of the Kaganai. Okay.
Yes.
I get you.
Parking's an issue in a lot of places. And they publish who's going to be performing there, and you get there early, so you have a
The tri area is urbanizing and having parking issues. I
Yeah,
love it.
thanks for the clarification. I thought it was the actual proprietor that was wanting it, not just the general public.
Yeah.
The general public.
Yeah. Interesting. We need a parking authority, tri area parking. Okay.
You know, we're growing like you can't believe. And Mike Bailey's going to give us an update to next week. Mike?
Yeah, so just a reminder, we do have the special meeting next Wednesday, the 28th. It's going to be, the only thing we have on there is the 2024 audit presentation. So it should only at the most take an hour. Tyler Kennedy will be here on site to do that presentation. We did, the state auditor's office will also join that's part of our requirements is they'll join remotely. But just wanted to remind the commissioners that we do have that meeting, and we originally scheduled it for 2 hours. We didn't put anything else on the agenda, so it will just be the audit presentation. So the meeting should only be about an hour
Great.
from about 9 to 10.
Okay,
Thanks, Mike.
good.
The next part of the manager's report, there's a real small update on the 4-year work plan. We have a lot of staff members working on that. Matter of fact, Mike and I are going to meet with RUS on Friday. I have Eric Pryor doing some work. There's just a lot of staff members, too many to mention here, working on this project. Where we are on the substation expansions is we have most of the environmental work done. We're trying to finish that up so that Mike and his team can get all of that submitted with the 4-year work plan.
Kevin, could you clarify which substations you're talking about when you say substation expansions and environmental review?
So the 3 we're working on right now, and the 3 key areas are the new substation by the paper mill, and that's a total new environmental review. And then in Quilcene, we're going away from the road. We're going to expand about 40 feet outside of the existing fence line. And then at Port Ludlow substation, we're going to kind of terrace that hill a little bit and move towards the hill for the second bay there. So those are the 3 stations they're working on now. The environmental work is completed. There may be some additional archaeology work that will have to happen, but we won't know that till midweek next week. And that we're hoping, and some of this in the meeting that Mike can have with RUS next week, or not next week, next Friday. We're hoping that we can go ahead and submit our 4-year work plan. Again, that just puts us one step closer to the RUS loan as one of the options that staff will present to the board on how to fund these major projects moving forward. We feel comfortable that the work is going really quick. Part of that is the same environmental group that did a lot of the broadband work has stepped in and is doing the environmental on these areas. Most of them, they've already done a lot of work around and had a lot of information. So it was a money saver there for us to use the same group coming forward.
Kevin, are you saying that the environmental work has been completed for the substation that will go in by the paper mill?
The environmental assessment has been completed. There is still some additional work to be done specifically on that one with some of the historical and agricultural stuff that will take a little bit longer.
Just point of clarification, it sounds like our US requires information when we submit our plan. Is that correct? So you've got consultants out there gathering the information, but when we go to build a substation there, we're still going to have to go through the county permitting process, this, I assume, state environmental permit process, and that information hopefully can be used, but that'll be a separate process.
Yeah.
Okay.
The state stuff should be and how it's supposed to work, whether it does or not, I don't know. But the state, I believe, is going to accept the stuff that's being done for the federal government. It is basically the same information. It's packaged a little bit different, but we're hoping, at least on the environmental work, that the same reports will work for the state. If not, it'll be a very minor change to get it through the state. And with that, that is the end of manager's report.
So I had a couple of follow-ups from Leo brought up a ton of things, but clarification. So when we did the property in lieu of tax thingy, and we were negotiating an amount with the county based on our 2023 retail broadband asset valuation. So I think Leo's asserting, I mean, we're all of us are paying our property taxes for 2024 right now. Is that property tax in lieu of, and if these are Joel questions, I realize we have to punt until Joel's back, but is the property tax stuff on the same schedule as our local property taxes, or does it have a unique schedule that we're up to date with by having the 2023? Does that make sense?
Yes, Jeff, we are compliant. There's a lot of misinformation out there on what the state has done and will do, but I'll have Mike give you an update because he's the one that's been dealing with the state.
So yes, so we are up to date. So some of the reports that they did were just reports they did off of high level information that we gave them. So that way the Department of Revenue could report to the legislators on how things would be affected by the new laws and everything. But so we did the 24 assessed year that we just paid at the end of April based on our year end 2023. I just sent information to DOR to start the next process for the 2025 assessed year that we will pay in 2026 based on our 2024 data. And according to the reps at DOR, we are all up to date. Everything is in good order. We're just now starting the process. Trying to get an earlier start on next year's payment. So that way we have the process. We can work on getting a value, determine that value, work with and negotiate with DOR on the value and everything before it gets sent to the county.
Okay. And so two different laws, two different sets of rules, and even the county assessment. Well, anyway, I won't go into that.
So, but
Yeah.
yes, everything with DOR, we are all in good standing order with DOR.
And then my second question, it sounds like we had a request for wholesale broadband customer hookup. And it's being alleged that when we contact that customer for service, we then sold them Jefferson PUD retail ISP. Okay. So that's kind of a big allegation. And
Jeff, before we talk about it here, I'd like to spend some time with staff and get some information from staff.
I wasn't going to ask for a response right because that's kind of a big allegation. So, okay. Thank you. All right. That's the end. And my computer went to sleep. Give me a second here. Okay, so we've gotten through manager and staff reports to commissioner reports. Ken, would you be willing to go first?
Sure. So May 12th, I had a meeting with the general manager and then attended the ICG meeting. On the 15th, I went out to swim and met with Commissioner Ken Hayes for lunch. And also attended the special Board of Commissioners meeting on the 19th. I also met with the general manager, as I will do on the 26th. I plan on attending the special meeting on the audit and the special meeting that we'll have on the 30th.
Okay.
Special meeting on the 30th. Which one
I
was
thought that was the first. Is there
I
one on
think
the
it's
30th
I
too?
think it's the 1st of June, and we probably should get that nailed down. I thought it was the 30th as well, and I reached out and heard back, and I was told it was the 1st, which is a Sunday,
Right.
and that the board had discussed that and that we were gonna be okay with
I
that.
also have it on my calendar for all day on Sunday, so.
I think we had initially, because this was a month ago, we were
Right.
more that we scheduled that, and I don't know it ever got nailed down. Finally, I think it came down to the 1st.
Yeah, and I don't know who's responsible for the meeting notifications, but I'm looking at the website and I don't see it noticed on the website yet. So we need to get that squared away. Thank you for
Because
the
that
thumbs
will
up.
be an executive session if I'm not.
Well, it'll be a special meeting. That's one item is an executive session.
Exactly,
Yep. Okay.
with no action.
Thumbs ups from Kevin. I guess Ken, get your calendar squared away there. Yeah. Okay. Dan.
Yeah, so
The end of your report.
Yes.
Okay.
So I attended the PPC member forum on May 7th. BPA senior transmission team were there and talked about what's going on at BPA with their transmission. And moving forward, what their plans and how they're going to do things on the transmission side of things. I attended the PPC executive committee meeting on May 8th. There were discussions about the BPA SPP Markets Plus entry. PPC legal counsel gave an update on potential court proceedings that PPC could or may participate in the coming year, and the BP 26 rate case information. I think that's just about closed up, the BP 26 rate case. I attended the Intergovernmental Collaborative Group meeting, the ICG, on May 12th. It was interesting information and discussion about the potential sewer infrastructure plans for Glen Cove Industrial Area. I attended the NOAANET meeting on May 14th. I attended the Waputa Strategic Planning meeting on May 15th. There was very little language changes from the previous year's strategic plan, and it'll be brought before the Board of Directors for ratification at the July meeting. I also attended our BOC special meeting on BEAD later that day. I met with Kevin Street on May 16th. I will attend the audit report on May 28th, right? That was the correct
Yeah.
date, May 28th. And I will attend the meeting with the NRECA GM search team on June 1st or 30th if we find out, but I believe it's the first.
2 out of 3 of us think
June
it's the first.
1st, yeah.
Then we'll see how it goes.
And that concludes my report.
Thanks. All right. Mine's a little longer because I am going to dive into the NOAANET board meeting.
Yeah, I
stuff.
figured you would. I didn't.
If Kevin or Curtis want to add anything, they can. So on the 7th, I met with one of the EDC board members, Scott Rogers. On the 12th, attended the ICG meeting. On the 13th, in Spokane, the night before our NOAANET meeting, had a kind of a working dinner with Curtis. So Curtis, I appreciate you taking your time to meet with me then. On the 14th, attended the NOAANET board meeting. And overall, it was a good meeting. Our guest was Bigfoot Communication, which is an LLC of the Colville tribe. And they are currently have an entirely wireless network of 400 customers. And the Colville tribes in Eastern Washington, kind of north of Grand Coulee Dam. And one of the interesting things is right now their customers don't pay anything for it. It's free. And there's a lot of money in NTIA. I think it was some billion number. It was like 3 billion or something, a big number for tribal broadband. And NOAANET has been working with them on the wireless network and is apparently going to work with them on the fiber. So that was neat. And then they were also there as part of the discussion of bringing new members onto NOAANET. And tribes qualify, and I'll get to that in just a second. And Bigfoot plans to be their own ISP, and they're not ruling out providing service off the reservation. Let's see here. So NoAnet does have this kind of wireless division now, and they're working with Franklin County PUD, Pacific PUD, the Colville Tribe, the Lummi Nation, the Shoalwater Bay Indian Tribe, something I wrote down as the Ellensburg Unity Park, which I don't know what that is, and the Spokane Tribe, on wireless options for places where that makes sense. Then we had a report from Natasha, and I have her last name written down someplace, who I think is leading NoAnet's retail ISP business. And the Chelan County Retail Pilot Program is still going forward. They're getting early positive feedback. They're doing it because Ziply came in and bought the local ISPs. What the feedback they're getting from reviews is that their customers like a simple, straightforward price that's not going to change, month to month, and is easy to understand. I think they found one of the things I thought they said was that maybe it was in one of the other counties. Anyway, now that's getting into the weeds. They're doing some interesting things. They're measuring the cost of how much it costs to acquire a customer. And I thought that was interesting. And they're saying it's just a little bit higher than the industry standard, but that's something that NoAnet's measuring their marketing efforts and then how much it costs. Chelan PUD has chosen to replace their minimum speeds going from 500 megabytes or going from 100 megabytes per second up to 500 megabytes per second as the minimum speed they're offering. And at the end of the day, they're looking at the processes, how they work too. They're trying to have a single day interconnection of customers from when, I don't know if it's like the day the customer requests it to actually get him hooked up so that it's completely automated. And that was some interesting discussion. They're also they're starting to work with Douglas PUD. That's that. So then we started talking about executive board issue, or we started talking about NoAnet board issues. And there's been this question of should NoAnet have an executive board like Energy Northwest and PPC? And the attorney, Ryan Espegard, was giving this report. He said that right now staff is not recommending we go to this. And it was interesting because at the last board meeting, it seemed like it was like more likely to come forward quickly. Staff's not recommending this. Just maintain the full board. Those members, if we had a executive board, the board members would elect it like NoAnet. They said that makes a lot of sense if NoAnet grows so much that the boardroom becomes crowded and full board meetings are cumbersome, and we're not there yet. There's this discussion about having an oath of office because some members are concerned that not all board members are there with the primary purpose acting as a fiduciary responsibility for NoAnet. Nothing's been created. Ryan was saying that the same effect can be created with communicating with the board members and making them familiar with the bylaws and the purpose of NoAnet. So that's not going to be forthcoming. That was kind of causing some ruffles at a previous board meeting too. And right now the bylaws require that a new member be a power utility. So joint action agencies, cities and towns that sell power, any other sub-agency that state that generates electricity. So one of the things we're probably going to talk about is changing the bylaws so that organizations that meet all the other qualifications but aren't an electric utility could be members. Okay, then we talked about new membership. NoAnet staff would have a goal of adding 6 to 7 new member owners, and that they not just be anybody, they be member owners who want to fully integrate with NoAnet. And full integration can mean different things for different customers, but the idea is that NoAnet is marketing, operating, providing all the technical support for whatever broadband communication services you're providing. So that was interesting. And for other members who aren't fully integrated, so this is like existing members, NoAnet, and this is Craig Nelson's report, NoAnet is looking to at least be able to bid on RFPs that the member utility puts out and to know what third-party agreements the member utilities have with outside organizations for broadband services, just so that NoaNet can discuss with each member owner opportunities to collaborate, opportunities to do business with member owners. So from my perspective, it was staff has put significant time thinking about this issue and had a very concise report, and it didn't get contentious. And in the past, it's gotten contentious about you need to fully integrate or you're going to pay a minimum fee. And we worked through it, and it was really nice. And it was nice that staff looked at this idea of getting new members and thought about, well, let's have these expectations. If you want to be a new member, here's what helps us and here's what works for us. So I thought it was a really healthy discussion and good work by the NoaNet staff. Then we had an executive session where we looked at, I'm not going to talk about the details, I'm going to say the topic. It was a review of the performance of an employee of NoaNet. It was Craig. And then we came out of that and had to make our decisions, and we chose to increase his salary by 7.5%. He has a date for retirement. Now I can't remember when that is. It's coming up not too far. And we established strategic goals for Craig, including succession planning, working with all member utilities to know what the options are for working with NoaNet and how NoaNet can support those member utilities, and looking at employee morale and retention. Currently, there's a third party which is conducting an employee survey and will be reviewed by the executive team. So people were happy with Craig and offered him this increase. Let's see. And then afterwards, Curtis and Kevin and I met with NoaNet staff, Mike Henson, who's head of sales, and Natasha Eiler, who's I believe, their lead on NoaNet retail. I just wanted to hit a few topics that we covered. We discussed what products and services are offered by NoaNet that Jefferson PUD might want to explore. We discussed the BTOP grant and that funded the first fiber build in Jefferson County, and what that experience was like from NoaNet's perspective and how Jefferson PUD was involved. And great discussion. It was really interesting. I was quiet most of the time. And Mike Henson said that he would schedule a follow-up time with Curtis to discuss sharing more information and future collaborative opportunities. I don't know have you heard from Mike?
Right now, he's waiting on feedback from us on the peninsula,
Okay.
bypass.
Okay. Yeah. So I really appreciated Curtis and Kevin staying after. And again, I thought it was very productive. Let's see. So that's the NoaNet report. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Did they talk about long-range planning to make NoaNet sustainable?
I mean, that's how all this stuff came up. And it was, I don't know, 3-4 meetings ago that they kind of started this, where they came and said they were asked by the board to look at, what's our future look like? And they did some revenue projections, and they were okay until it was like 2030, 2031. And then it was deficit time. So that's where the talk of, here's what it's like for us to have a fully integrated member versus, we're kind of the poster boy for doing the least work. We do internet with them,
They're looking at more big government contracts, and they're
Yeah.
looking at what's the telecommunication system there, what is it? The
Private LTE.
private LTE. They're looking at branching out to do some things there.
Yeah.
They've got multiple different paths that they're looking at, and obviously going into the retail side of things with the beta test that they did at Chelan and some expanding on that and other things. So they're looking at a whole bunch of different directions that they can take to expand their revenue.
And they broke things into 2 categories: recurring monthly revenue, one-time projects.
Yeah.
And they've done a good job of bringing in one-time projects over the past few years, but throwing out too many names. Craig's point was we really need to have a good solid base of recurring revenue, and right now the recurring revenue is going down. Some of their business lines they're seeing are going to decrease over time. So that's what drove this whole thing. They've done that, and it'll probably be revised over time. More questions, or is that it?
So did they have projections as to how they're going to be financially viable?
Well, they had a projection if they do nothing, which kind of started this when, which was bad, like whoop, off the cliff. So I think what they're doing now, since it's a little ways out, they've got 5, 6 years. They've looked at adding more members as a goal, adding more members that are fully integrated, exploring fully integrating with more members, and Franklin is doing it now.
Yes.
I think the working with these other utility, they're trying to figure out how can retail ISP evolve. So they're working on a bunch of things, but they don't have numbers attached to those options yet, if that makes sense.
That's
Okay.
really what I was asking.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, an observation and a question too. The observation on the oath of office, I get that. There's some concerns about, who's supporting NOAANET, who's not supporting NOAANET in different capacities, as a board member. My thing with that is, it's depends on the perspective, and it's somewhat subjective. You could have 10 members there that say, not all of them are going to say, well, I think that is the best thing for NOAANET. Not everybody's always going to agree that maybe that is not the best thing for NOAANET. And it's not that your own utility is going to benefit or whatever it may be. It's okay to question whether or not that really is in the best interest of NOAANET. And that's what I'm curious about, is that we don't get down that rabbit hole of that. It's just everyone's a yes man because you're a board member. That's not what we're there to do. We're there to be objective and look, is this what's being put forward really the best thing for NOAANET or not?
Right. I think I agree with you. I think exercising one's fiduciary responsibilities and your point of view, it's kind of a subjective standard, and it's an accusation. Hey, you're really representing your member utility right now, not NOAANET. That's kind of a subjective accusation. But what the attorney was saying was, in his perspective, we don't need an oath of office. We don't need new rules. We have all the rules.
Right.
Everybody needs to be aware of the rules. And if a topic comes up that somebody feels, hey, then you talk about that. And
then the one other thing, you talked about the Articles of Confederation and the bylaws needing to be changed because of the JOA and the municipals and the different things that you have to qualify as being an energy related utility, those sorts of things.
I think it was, as far as my notes had, it was just that narrow issue of
the other for me is we start to go down the bylaws, Articles of Confederation, and that's the weight of your vote as a member. There's still as an owner, I think there was still some talk about maybe a disproportionate weight to your vote. It should be one owner, one
Right now,
vote.
it's
I just
one
want to
owner.
make sure that we're all on the same page
No-
if that discussion takes place.
No new discussion of that. They've said everybody comes into the same voting rights.
Yeah.
And the only issue that they talked about was there's different utilities have invested different amounts of money in NOAANET, and that those amounts of money are still recorded, and it's still there that if there's ever a payout that they get, paid first for those. So I think we're settled. I don't think
But
there's
just for our
anything.
board, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page,
Yep.
that we believe that it should be, if you're an owner, it's one vote.
And it's not being debated.
Yeah.
There's nobody
Well,
arguing anything.
But as you go down that road of changing things, it could come up again. So.
Right. Okay. I'll try and hurry along here. Where's my next meeting? Okay. On the 15th, we had our special meeting. The Economic Development Council board had a special meeting. We had made an offer to our top candidate for the executive director. He counteroffered. So then we had to meet to discuss the counteroffer, and we adjusted it a little bit and sent it back. And since then, he has accepted. So David Balliff is going to be the next executive director of the EDC. His start date, I believe, is June 3rd. He'll be remote for the first 3 weeks or so because he's going to be in Mexico with his wife for some reason. And he starts in person here, I believe, like June 23rd.
Little background, just curious.
I'll get you some info for him.
Local or someone?
He's semi-local. He grew up in Skagit County.
Okay.
He has worked as a contractor and for the federal government. He's done economic work with the, now I can't remember the name of the office. It's the one that got shellacked by the current administration, basically foreign aid office. And he was a foreign,
USAID?
yeah, he was with USAID. And I think his wife has got a local job, so they're excited to come here, but I'll get you some information on him. I forgot that. Let's see here. And then the executive committee is working with the current executive director on a transition plan for David. Had phone meetings with Kevin Street and Craig Nelson on the 16th, had another meeting with Scott Rogers on the 19th. Looking ahead, we'll have an NODC board meeting this Thursday, the 22nd. And then I'll be a part of those special meetings that you both had mentioned, and that is my report. Okay, moving ahead back to the agenda, consent agenda. Do we have any changes to the consent agenda?
Motion to accept the consent agenda is presented.
Second.
All right, are there any objections, Kevin? Not hearing any? We're good? Okay, motion is second to accept the consent agenda. All in favor of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, it's approved. Old business, there's none. New business, Peterson Lake. Who is presenting on Peterson Lake?
I'll jump in here.
Okay.
And if I lose my connection, just let me know. I think I'll be okay. So as everyone knows, we've owned Peterson Lake for a long time now. We had some renters in there a while ago, and because of some of the necessary repairs and work, we decided it was best to take the renters out and then evaluate the properties. In that evaluation, we brought in a local architect to come in and look at both properties and give us his assessment of the properties. In his report, he's calling one ADU and the other is like the main house. So I'm going to start talking about the ADU. That house needs to be torn down. Not only is the house in bad shape, the septic system has failed, and there's no financial benefit to the PUD to do anything other than remove the home. And if you look in the agenda report, part of the 300,000 that we're saying needs to be spent on this property is to properly remove the house. There's some sheds there. Work on the septic, making sure that it's safe moving forward, decommission it. And then there's some other work that needs to be done on site. And that is part of the 300,000. The other house, the main house, it does need some work. This winter during the raining periods, we were getting some water in the basement coming through the basement walls. For you that don't know, this on the front side of the house where you drive into is a full basement. On the back side, it is a walkout basement. So on the front side is where the water comes in at. And so there needs to be basically a new French drain put around the front of the house. There needs to be some resloping, some work to keep the water away from that house. Plus, in the report, there were some items listed that need to be done, some roofing, some other stuff. We are aware, when you start opening up some of these walls, there you find things that you weren't expecting. So we're that 300,000 does include a lot of things we're not expecting. For example, on the tear down house, if before we can tear it down, we'll have to bring in a company to look for asbestos, stuff like that. That would add to our costs. So we put some money in the kitty for that. And then as we're working on the main house, uh, if we find some mold or something along those lines when we're going through and looking really at all the damage, and we believe the water's been coming in the basement for a couple years now, we may have to do some other repairs. So for this meeting, we really wanted just to start the conversation with the board. Let you guys know and have some public discussions with Peterson Lake and how to move forward. We're not asking for anything at this time other than discussion from the board and answering any questions the board may have or questions the public may have.
Okay, so we're gonna start with questions from commissioners.
Kevin, what do you see as the ultimate use of the main house?
So what I'd like to use the main house for is to, there's many times where PUD staff, different groups or different teams really need to be away from the PUD. Occasionally we go down to the port, we do find other buildings, things like that. We would like to be able to use that for that purpose. We do think there are times when we bring people in, instead of putting up at a hotel, we could put them up there. I do think that there are some opportunities for the PUD to use this as for some staff for letting them do some things out on the property that shows that the PUD is trying to be a good employer and let staff do things out there. It's just a beautiful spot. We would like to be able to offer it to our employees as kind of an incentive to our contractors who are coming in. And these are examples. In 2 weeks, we'll have engineering people here. It'd be nice to have a place for them. We do have some meetings scheduled where we're going to go down to the port. It'd be nice maybe to have this at our facility where you're kind of away from everything. So those are kind of the ideas we are kicking around. We don't think it's beneficial to have it as a rental. That doesn't make sense to us as staff. What we were getting for the place and what it actually cost us, it at best was a break even. It was not a good uh, it was not a good financial arrangement for the PUD. And now that we're going to have to do the work, it just shows that much more that was not a sustainable product for the PUD to have.
So thank you, Kevin, for bringing this to us. As I read this report and I had a chance to go out to Peterson Lake, because when we had those renters out there was this issue of them moving out and the end of police and stuff. So I got a tour of the house and the property. I'd never been out there before. Peterson Lake is an amazing piece of property.
Mhm.
Have you both been there?
I have not.
Okay, you should go there at some point. It is a stunning piece of property that's not visible from really anywhere until you get there. That said, and I think it's good that it's in public ownership, because I think there's definitely public benefits for it. That said, I am concerned about what our future plan is for it, and do we have a sustainable plan for Peterson Lake? Do we have a sustainable financing plan for it? So my first question is, where do the costs of Peterson Lake and where will this, where does it land in the business lines of Jefferson PUD currently?
So it is part of our general expenses that we expense out or will be moving forward, Jeff. There's, there will always be some work that needs to be done, you know, some repairs. I don't want to, I don't want any of the board to think, well, we'll spend this money and then we will never have another repair in 100 years. That's not unrealistic. We do think though that after spending this amount, there would be a fairly, you know, 10, 12 years where there would be very little upkeep other than we are mowing the property around there. We are, you know, we do put people up there for different checks that to make sure the house is still like during the rainy season that's when they found the flooding, you know, those kind of things. We'll always have a little bit of maintenance up there.
Okay, something flashed up on the screen. I didn't get my glasses on quick enough to see it. I know Eric Kingfisher,
Yeah,
did he have to drop off?
Drop off.
What's he say? Hi all, I joined just to hear about there's certainly conservation value in the property. We can read that in the
Yeah.
public comment part. So I guess my follow-up question, I wasn't quite done with my questions. Thanks for that response, Kevin. My follow-up concern is, you know, we've gotten some money out of logging up there, but that property, I think we acquired it because of the water issues, aquifer and recharge and other, whatever other issues. And I think there's some restrictions on the deeds about how it can be dealt with. After my tour up there, I reached out to the Jefferson Land Trust and just asked, hey, and I have a friend who works at Eric, are you familiar with Peterson Lake? And he said, yeah, we're really interested in that property. And I'm just kind of wondering, it's gonna cost us money. That is not gonna be a break even piece of property if we, as you're describing, we use it. Occasionally going out there and use it, occasionally avoiding a hotel cost for somebody. It's gonna cost us money. It might be 300 grand a year it costs us. And I'm wondering, because that property is so big and has so much beneficial value, some for us, some I think to the land trust, would you be open, or the commissioners open to discussing partnering so that we're not bearing that cost alone, yet we can still get the benefits that, you know, we see value for the PUD?
Well, again, I don't know if we need a third party having control over it, period, right? That's the first thing I would say. I don't know what that partnership would look like.
Mhm.
There is a forest management plan, and I think it needs updated. That was a contingency of taking the property on, and I know where staff is with updating that. Like you said, there's revenue from the logging, that sort of thing. I do concur with the demolition of the small ADU. It's not worth putting the money into that for whatever purposes. The larger house, I can see, you know, Kevin's point on that. Maybe this is, again, you talk about revenue. That's the only way to generate revenue off that property other than the forestry or whatever could spawn off of forestry. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but again, that would be part of your forest management plan. I look at it as we get that place up to speed. It's fairly large. It's obviously more 2 stories. You could obviously, my first thought is we have a new GM coming in. If they can't find housing, that could be temporary housing for like a new GM for a short period of time. They pay rent. It wouldn't be gratis. There's, to help cover the cost of, that and whatever. So renting it out for special occasions, again, you get into the legal, the access to the property. What do you do for one entity? You have to do it for another entity, right? This is the problem we run into with trying to utilize the property to generate revenue, which was not why the property was purchased in the first place. It was, I believe, for the watershed issues and other things along that line. So how long, we're getting close to payoff on it as well.
Yeah, we are getting close.
I think
We
it's a
still
year and a
have-
half, maybe, if memory serves right. So that's going to be money that will be freed up again to, take care of the property, do different things. We're paying to own it now, that money could start going, some of that money could go to maintain it. So there's just a bunch of things there to unpack. That's kind of my thoughts on it. But I am at this point not willing to give any control of it up beyond what the PUD has. So I don't know what that looks like for what you're proposing for a third party. I don't know what that is, what that looks like, what they're going to do to maintain it.
Mhm.
I mean, if we have to pay a third party, no. we don't
Right.
need to pay a third
No,
party.
I'm looking at, can we reduce our costs?
And I think, like I said,
Because for example, the Jefferson Land Trust, they're a nonprofit, they raise money, they have access to grants. They see that a lot of the value, that it's a jewel. They
Yeah.
see a lot of the values that we do, yet like from a different perspective that don't conflict with ours. To me, it's like additive.
Yeah.
That could reduce our costs, that we could use that money for other stuff.
Yeah, again, I don't know how much revenue can be generated or
Right.
should be generated. It's a holding, we don't pay property tax on it because
Right.
of, being an electric utility. We
Yeah.
pay the privilege tax instead. So again, I realize there could be some benefits maybe to the community for doing different things with it. I don't know what that looks like.
Okay.
So
So, and just speaking to Eric Kingfisher at the Jefferson Land Trust, he is interested in talking. I think could we read his comment?
I'll just pull it up over here. It'll be easier.
Just, if you could just read it, it's too
Yeah.
small for me to see very well.
So
I don't want to commit one way or the other without seeing the property.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And I wasn't looking for a commitment. I was,
Well, let me finish.
sure.
What I meant was I don't want to commit to an opinion
Mhm.
about it
Mhm.
without seeing it. That being said, if it's as beautiful a piece of property as you suggest that it is, that's something we should hold on to. However, I also wonder whether the upkeep on a house that would only be very occasionally used makes sense, as opposed to converting that to some sort of facility that can be used for picnics and for staff retreats. Having looked at the photos,
It's nicer than the photos, but. it's
Yeah, I mean-
it would need
also
to be.
dated.
again,
dated.
I don't know the legalities, the liabilities, the
Yeah.
covenants that come with the ownership of it. We're obviously using it for specific watershed purposes. The first thing that comes to mind to me is weddings. You schedule weddings there, but again, now you're getting into a commercial venture, so to speak, to, generate revenue to cover costs. So I don't know what that looks like. I could foresee us maybe being able to do that in a limited capacity, as long as, it's we're legally able to do it. Again, that's 220 acres wildfire. Again, if you have access, now wildfire is another issue we have to be concerned about. And how are we prepared to deal with that if someone were to do, start?
I can tell you with complete certainty, having owned a winery property and hosting weddings on it, not a business we want to get into.
I just threw that as an example because of, the scenic background and the layout of the building and things like that. So, again, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it would take a lot of thought. But I will say this, moving forward, I am not in favor of allowing any third party to have control over the property,
Right, and I'm not suggesting
or
that.
second party.
Yeah, I'm suggesting, are there ways where we retain ownership, but where others see the value in what we have, where they would be willing to help us pay for it? And one of the concerns, you brought up the issue of liability and people getting up there. That's a big issue right now, because we had people there all the time, and they said they had people there's a gate, but you can walk around the gate. People wandering up there all the time, and that it's a wonderful asset, but it's also a potential liability. And I'm not comfortable right now with staff's occasional usage plan. I think we need to look at it more carefully. One question, Kevin. So to me, one of the possibilities, if you had two houses up there, it may give you more options for making money. And I realize that one is basically a tear down now. Before we tear it down, I think we should explore with Jefferson County, because you talked about possibly, you could bring in another house. Before we tear it down, we make sure we're not losing our ability to rebuild there. if that were part of any plan that would make more money, would be the best use for the PUD. Because I believe that's a shoreline jurisdiction, and shoreline jurisdiction it's not the easiest thing to build a house. So, whatever we do before we tear it down, I think we should find out from the county what our rights are and how they change once we start taking stuff out. Because that's a value. Having a shoreline house is really valuable.
Yeah, but the ADU, the one that's scheduled to be tore down, is far enough away from the water and the creeks that I don't think it would fall into a shoreline type classification. And if the septic is condemned, you'd have to go through a whole new process, and the county may say you may not even be able to redo the one that's there. So again, I get what you're saying about checking with the county, but we're trying to get out of the rental business. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm not quite sure us redoing the ADU site is that big of an issue at this point.
Kevin, since it doesn't look like we're having a meeting on the 30th, and I blocked that time off, I wonder if you could facilitate my going out there and seeing the property.
Yeah, we can facilitate. I was even going to offer, we meet on Monday. We could go out then too, Ken, but yes, we can get you out there.
Okay, you should check it out. And again, shoreline jurisdiction is 200 feet from the shoreline, including any associated wetlands. So I didn't go down to the ADU, but I'd be surprised if it's not within that.
Yeah, I think it's far enough away to meet the 200-foot setback. So
From
any waterway,
Water and wetlands.
either the lake or the outfall creek.
Well, as a responsible representing our fiduciary duty to the Jefferson PUD, I don't think we should demolish it until we find out what our rights are. I think that would be dumb. I'll just say that.
No, I think we should check with the county. That's fine, but
Okay,
I
that's all I'm
concur
saying.
with the fact that the existing building is not worth putting any more money into.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you're going to get much more than that. I think it's a complicated issue. It affects our budget. It's, Peterson Lake is this whole thing by itself that once Ken sees it, you'll see it too. It's a big issue. It's going to take some time. And did you have a timeline on doing the work, doing the demo?
No, we know there's going to be a couple more meetings. This is first touch, just not
Okay.
only for the commissioners to see it, but to have the public see some of the documents that we have.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anything else on that one? We'll move on. On back.
Coordinated water.
I'm sorry. So did we ever read Eric Kingfisher's comment? It was short. Could you please read it?
No, yeah, I can
couldn't
read it.
I couldn't see it.
Okay. It says, "Hi all, I joined just to hear about the Peterson Lake property. There's certainly conservation value in that property, and the land trust is interested in what the long-term plan is. I've got to run to our land trust board meeting starting in a few minutes. Thanks."
Okay, thank you. All right. Our next item is the coordinated water system plan, Jefferson County. Who's leading that one?
So I'll lead this one, and then Jose can jump in because he's the last couple meetings he's attended. We've talked about this in the past. The county needs to put a consolidated water plan together. The last one they had was 97. They've done minor updates, but truly needs a complete rewrite. The county went through a process and had a really hard time hiring an engineering firm. They finally were able to hire HDR to help with the coordinated water plan and to spread the costs across the A system users. It boils down to the city of Port Townsend and the PUD coming together to fund a lot of this work. This work is really important for the PUD, for our community, for the county, for the city. It is how we protect our water. We just spent some time on Peterson Lake. It was purchased because of the watershed. So to me, water is going to become more important to our community. And that's, I give the county a lot of credit by pushing this consolidated water plan forward. It's truly a necessity. Our share, and I will bring up my report right now. Our share is just shy. Oh, I can't get that to go. I can't get my report up. We're just shy of $50,000.
That's
Oh,
42,000, isn't it, Kevin?
yeah, I can't. My,
Whoever can see it.
yeah,
41,974.
and
And for us, and 58,154 for the city.
yeah, I believe we will probably go over a little bit from those budget numbers. That is what the contract's for. I hope I am wrong that we stay within budget, but there's a ton of work that needs to happen here. So staff's recommendation is to allow me to sign the interlocal agreement and move this process forward. Um, any questions from the board? And this doesn't have to be done tonight. We can bring it back, but we've talked about it in the past that this is something that's important for us to do.
So I'm trying to understand this. So if you add 41,000 to
Yeah.
58,000, it doesn't add up to 207.
math.
Who's paying the rest of it?
Well, the county's involved.
The-
But when you read on page 57 of the packet here, it says the number of connections and cost per connection says the contract fee to which the city and PUD must contribute is 151,658 based on the total number of connections, but yet we're only paying 42 and 58. So that math doesn't work
Yeah,
out. The
99.
county is involved, so the county's must be paying something somewhere, but those A and B of that number one under number of connections doesn't quite make sense to me the way the math reads.
So Kevin, are there other parties paying for this other than the city and the county?
The city and the PUD are paying the bulk of, and I'm going to call it what a Class A system involvement is. The county is paying for part of this. They did get some grants for part of this. So it's not just the two entities. The county is involved. They're paying for odds and ends. There's some climate resiliency that the county wanted to put in this plan, so they're paying for that. But yes, this is shared between others.
So the money is going for hiring consultants to update the plan. We're not talking about infrastructure here.
Correct. This is engineering work to update the plan.
Coordinated water plan.
And if the cost goes up, presumably it's proportional. Whatever
Correct.
percentage then would affect us and our percent would go up too. Okay.
So can Mike or Kevin explain the A and B there, why that math reads the way, the 151,000 compared to the bottom where it's about 100,000? Why that way?
Yeah, the Bs aren't paying for anything, but they are part of the consolidated water plan group. And that's so that when they make the rules, it's going to be not only for A systems, but all of the B systems as well.
And Kevin, I think part of the question was on where it says under the number of connections and cost per connection. A says that the total that the must contribute to 151,000 based on the total number of connections, and each connection costs 953. And then B of that section talks about 41,947 for the PUD and 58,000. The numbers don't add up to each.
Yeah, and
Question.
Yeah, that's one of our questions.
That's what their question is you have this amount here, but then the 41,947 that the PUD is responsible for and the 58,154 for the city does not add up to 151.
Is the county paying the other half of that? That those are not covered by the PUD and the county's paying for it?
The way you read it, the contract as a whole, this, I guess that A would say that the city and the PUD must contribute the lower part, but the total for the whole thing is the 150. I guess it's not, it's the way it's worded is confusing maybe. Maybe it's just that upper one on A, it's just that the city and the PUD have to pay part of the 151,000 total. And then below it states what those parts are. It's worded kind of strangely in A.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because it just said, yes, contract fee, which the city and the PUD must contribute is 151.
Right, that's the total fee for the whole plan, which includes the county is the way I guess you're supposed to interpret that. And then below
No.
it states what the PUD and the city
Are we
actually
paying?
pay.
Yeah, are we paying part of 151 or are we paying 41? It doesn't make sense.
So this is the agreement that was approved by the county. I will verify it. To my knowledge, our portion is $41,947.
Can you ask them to do the math on where the other
Yeah.
50,000 is coming from? Because they're saying us and the city are responsible for 151, and then they do the math on what we owe, and it doesn't add up.
I think the county must have a $50,000 responsibility is the way
It's
I would.
actually it does say the county will provide the remainder of the funding.
Yeah.
Yep.
Worded strangely.
It's just goofy.
Worded strangely.
All right.
My son in math class would get a C for that. Or poorly worded.
Just to
Okay.
make sure we're all on the same page of what everybody's responsibility
So are we,
is.
I mean, yeah,
And
we got
Joel,
good. He's,
yeah,
you know,
Joel has reviewed this.
he's going to say we're going to owe the least that it claims. So do we have any public comment on this? Not seeing any. Can we have a motion approving the attached memorandum of understanding?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding between Jefferson County, the city of Port Townsend, and the Jefferson Public Utility District regarding the coordinated water system plan. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, done. All right.
Thank you.
Had one more on here, which related to contractors, if I remember right.
Is back in town at some
Back
point.
in the saddle again. Okay.
So yeah, this is, each year we do have to bring forth qualified electrical contractors to be approved by the board. Palouse did not do it. They came out later. We did this back in January. We did a whole slew of them. We do them from time to time as we get applications in so they can bid on projects. So we're just bringing this forward now. We've gotten the application from Palouse Power. It's been reviewed by myself, Jeff Dodd, our safety manager, and Mike Smith, the electrical superintendent, and they've met all the guidelines. So we're just bringing it now to the board, so that way we can approve a motion to add Palouse to the district's list of pre-qualified contractors for electrical facility construction or improvements.
Okay. Quick question. So they have to do this. All our electrical contractors have to do this every year.
Yep, every year we do have to.
Okay.
They have to update the list and.
And roughly how, I know this has been an issue in the past, not having enough folks online. How many do we have roughly currently?
I don't think I want to say probably about a dozen or so.
Oh, wow.
It may be a dozen, couple dozen.
That's great.
We're getting more and more. There's a lot of new companies that are also getting out there, starting out contract crews and stuff. So.
Okay. Any questions, other questions from commissioners? Not seeing any public. Can we have a recommendation to approve a motion to add the aforementioned contractors, Palouse Power of Quincy, Washington, my home birth city, to the district's 2025 list of pre-qualified contractors for electrical facility construction or improvement per RCW 5404080 and RCW 54085.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve the pre-qualify list. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. Palouse Power is back in the saddle on the list again. Okay. So it is now 5:19. Just as a trivia question, does anybody in the room other than me know the high school mascot for Quincy? Get a free pair of
As
sunglasses.
close as I can
The
get.
Jackrabbits.
Hmm.
The Jackrabbits. Okay. It is now 5:19 and our meeting is adjourned. And you guys down in California, travel safe. And thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We're
Thanks,
adjourned.
everybody. Have a good night.
Everyone.